Funny dad.
Why? So everybody can see.
We'd like to open in prayer today and hope you enjoy the pictures. We put that together and it's a snapshot of our lives together. And there's some really cool pictures in there of what we used to be, I guess, and what we're going to. Shots, thoughts, perceptions of who she was in the lives and the eyes of her daughter, her nephew, her sons-in-law, her grandchildren, and friends. I'm the oldest daughter, Paige. I married Dan Payne in March in 1981, and my three grown children, Jared, Tanya, and Max, are here today with their families. And Jen and I live in Boulder, Montana, which is really cool, so stop by anytime. Mom's father, Benish Swidler, immigrated with his parents, Sarah and Samuel, his sister Dora, brothers Jacob and Irving from Dolchitz, Russia, on May 25th, 1907. They were on the vessel named Korea, and they came to the United States through Ellis Island, where their last name was changed from Swidler to Sweedler. Mom grew up in White Plains, New York, and graduated from a Marionette High School. She had an older sister named Rita, and Rita's in one of those pictures. Mom attended University of Pennsylvania, and she graduated in 1951. And there she met Herbie Agocs, and the rest is history. That was lived out in Montana, of all places. My mom was a complicated person to me. My personality was more like my dad's, so you can imagine there was times of harmony and there was times of strife. Like any family, we were all a little dysfunctional, I think. She would say to me, "You are just like your father," and I think, what's so bad about that? Mom had beautiful taste in clothes and interior decorating. She was a great cook, employee, housekeeper. She traveled to France by herself after Dad died to watch the French Open. She was a lover of her husband, family, classical music, writing, reading, and her dogs. But most of all, she was a woman of faith and a woman of the Lord. The greatest act of love and gift my mom gave me was when we prayed together so that I could ask the Lord into my heart when I was in 6th grade. Proverbs 31:30 says, "Charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised." My parents imparted a Christian legacy to their children, and that legacy continues. We really like to tease Mom about her driving, and Perry drives like her now. So you could ask Tom, Perry's husband, some great stories about Perry. But there's that side street by my trees, I think it's 15th Avenue, and Mom was ticketed there 3 times in 2 months, causing her insurance rate to be about the same of an 18-year-old teenager with a hot car. It was pretty funny, but Dad wasn't too happy about that. Mom liked caramel corn, and she purchased some at a mall in Prescott, Arizona. As she drove back to her condo with her dog in the car, she would drop some popcorn, lean down to get it, cause the car to swerve on the highway. Several people called the police about a drunk lady swerving all over, putting the dog in jeopardy. I think they were more concerned about the dog than my mom. Police were waiting for her when she arrived at home at her condo and asked her to take a breathalyzer test. It was about 10 in the morning, and Mom never drank, so she said they were out of their minds and she wouldn't, do something like that. She must have said some other choice things because she had to call the police officer later and apologize. Mom passed away 2 years ago, May 29th, 2020. She was nearing her 91st birthday and was living in Butte, of all places. I grew up in Bozeman, and I thought, we'll never live in Butte, but we did. But she was at the Big Sky Senior Living. She had slowed down considerably and spent most of her time sleeping or reading. Before the senior living facilities had been closed due to COVID, I had the privilege of helping my mom take a shower, washing her hair, and styling her. I was able to serve her as she had served me for so many years. And it was really one of the most precious times of my life to be with her. After the shutdown, I was able to see and talk to her from the door of the facility when the attendants would bring her to the lobby. Right after Mother's Day in 2020, Mom was admitted to St. James, where she received gentle palliative care. Even though there were COVID restrictions, I was allowed to spend the afternoon with her. I was so surprised when the chaplain called and said that she had just passed away, because I was just on my way to see her. And again, she surprised me. I miss my mom's wit, I miss her voice, I miss her encouragement, and her funny ways. I wear something of hers every day to remember her, mostly jewelry, and she would call me Paigey. At this time, I would like to introduce Perry's husband, Tom Lyon, for the first reading.
You know, as Paige said, can everyone hear me? As Paige said, Mom was a godly woman. She loved to read devotionals in the morning, and she, her children got to see that, that legacy has been handed down to them. I get to see that my wife each morning in her bedroom, she'll kneel by our bed, and she reads Streams in the Desert, which her mother was her mother's, and her mother would write in there. She would write her children's birthdays, she would write in her events, her grandchildren's, just relatives, things that happen in relatives' lives. And so what I'm going to read this morning is one of hers that she had written in hers on May 9th, and she had written Mother's Legacy. So it begins with scripture. It says, "She stretches out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. Strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in the time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done worthily, but thou exalteth all." And then the reading is, "The young mother set her foot on the path of life. Is the way long?" she asked. And her guide said, "Yes, the way is hard, and you will be old before you reach the end of it. But the end will be better than the beginning." But the young mother was happy, and she would not believe that anything could be better than these years. So she played with her children. She gathered flowers for them, and along the way and bathed with them in the clear streams. And the sun shone on them, and life was good. And the young mother cried, "Nothing will ever be lovelier than this." The night came, the storm, and the path was dark, and the children shook with fear and cold. And the mother drew them close and covered them with her mantle. The children said, "Oh, mother, we are not afraid, for you are near. No harm can come." And the mother said, "This is better than the brightest of day. For I have taught my children courage." The morning came, and there was a hill ahead. And the children climbed and grew weary, and the mother was weary. But all the time she said to the children, "A little patience, and we were there." So the children climbed, and when they reached the top, they said, "We could not have done it about the mother. And the mother said, and they lay down that night, looked at the stars and said, this is a better day than the last. For my children have learned fortitude in the face of hardness. Yes, today I gave them courage, today I gave them strength. And the next day came strange clouds that darkened the earth, clouds of war and hate and evil. And the children groped and struggled. And the mother said, look up, lift your eyes to the light. And the children looked and saw above the clouds an everlasting glory that guided them and brought them beyond the darkness. And the night the mother said, this is the best day of all, for I show my children God. And the days went on, and the weeks and the months and the years. And the mother grew old, and she was little bent. But the children were all tall and strong and walked with courage. So the day was hard to help her mother. When the way was rough, they lifted her, and she was light as a feather. At last they came to the hill. Beyond the hill they could see a shining road and a golden gate flung wide. And the mother said, I have reached the end of my journey. And now I know that the end is better than the beginning. So my children walk alone, and their children after them. And the children said, you will always walk with us, mother, even when you have gone through the gates. And they stood and watched her as she went on alone, and the gates closed after her. They said, we cannot see her, but she is with us all still. And a mother looks more than just a memory. She's more than just a memory. She is a living person and with us always.
When I was asked to be a part of this today, I thought about what I would like to be said after my time here. I've always loved stories, and so I'm going to share some of my memories with Barbara, and hopefully I can get through it. I find myself a little emotional this morning, but I have the privilege of being the oldest grandson on both sides. Sometimes that affords me with some special attention, and especially when I was younger and there wasn't so many around, you know. But it wasn't very long before Joey and another cousin were very close in age and were all together. But you know, Grandma, always dogs that we didn't have, dogs that we wouldn't have around our house. There was always lots of little dogs. Sadie, Totsy, I remember some of these. Yep. Some of the ones that weren't so famous or memorable, but when I was pretty young, we moved from Montana to Arizona, so it was a long time that we didn't spend time together. One of my earliest memories of Herb and Barb together was them coming around the corner where we lived in Prescott Valley, Arizona, and we were waiting, and I remember seeing their faces in the car that they were driving as they had driven from Montana to come and see us. Barb used to send us these wonderful kind of collages of newspaper clippings that she would make, and she would handwrite in things about us or a clipping in the newspaper that she thought we would like. For me, it was usually something to do with fishing or Montana mountains, and she would every birthday she would send one of those, and those are very memorable for me. When I was about 7 is when Herb passed, and that was another memory because we came to Montana. Max, my younger brother, was just born then, and I remember Herb being with Max in those last days. When I was 10, Barb flew me all by myself to Bozeman here, and we spent some time. I remember the Madison. She took me to the Madison, took me to Hepkin Lake. Museum of the Rockies was a big deal. We spent a long time there together. Every time that I visited Montana as a child. In junior high and early part of high school, she introduced me to tennis. I played quite a bit of tennis with her 100 pounds ago, or a couple 100 pounds ago. The tennis court's not the same anymore, but you know, I remember those times with her. We actually went to some matches. We met Pete Sampras together. We had a good time with those things. In high school, growing up in Arizona, I was born here in Bozeman, and for some reason I always wanted to be here. Some of you here helped me do that, but I always wanted to be in Montana, and me and my family are in Dillon. But she really helped me do that. She sent me to Montana a couple times. I used to write some stories as part of my college lit classes and stuff, and she loved one story that I wrote in particular. To my embarrassment, she would send it to the magazine, and they would redline it or ignore me and chew me up, and I was so embarrassed. But it was a sweet thing that she was doing. It was something that, because she thought it was something worth sharing. Another thing that Grandma had a picture. It was just a painting on a piece of barnwood, and it's a seascape by Lima Hopkins, and I've collected some of his paintings. They're not very expensive. You can find them on eBay for $100 or $200, but I have 5 or 6 of them now, and they're by the same artist, and they're neat. They're seascapes, and Barb grew up on the East Coast, and so there was something that was close to her heart to see those things. And so, as me and my wife are about to move into a new house this year, and I hope to arrange them as I remember her, because the first one that I have is only about this big, but it's something that is an enduring memory of her. Every time I see it, I think of it. We shared a lot of times together, and it was always special to have her support. She supported me a lot through college, not necessarily financially, but you know, she tried to feed me a lunch every week. So I went to school where she was. It was a good time. It was good times. My last memory with her was with Paige in the hospital, St. Jean. You know, I remember her. The last time we made eye contact. You know, it was hard to get into the hospital. They let me in, and we got to spend some time together. But the last eye contact, you know, under the blanket, and that was the last time I saw her. Thank you for letting me share with you today. We celebrate Barbara.
Hello, my name is Tanya Craighan. I am the daughter of Paige Payne, and I'm here today with my family. We live just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. So since the passing of my grandmama, I have been thinking of her quite a bit. It's funny how a person's influence and their mannerisms and their home just become a part of you. In so many ways, I just think the way she did her hair, her jewelry, her apartment that was filled with art and pictures of Grandpa. Herb, she would say, with a gleam in her eye 20 years after his passing, was precious. Her wittiness, you know Grandma, she was witty. Recently, I came across a card from her that was actually addressed to my hubby for completing his MBA. Of course, the card was filled with praise and congratulations for him, but on the inside of the card, she congratulated me on my PhD, putting hubby through. That was just like her. She was a classy woman with intellectual grit. She passed these same qualities to her 3 lovely daughters. I have rarely been around other ladies that are as well-read, musically talented, organized, and brilliant, all in their own way. Barbara Agocs, her daughters were her pride and joy. She had a unique relationship with all of them, special. It is my honor and privilege to carry on the matriline of these women, and my prayer is to embody the best pieces of each one of them throughout my life. Barbara Ruth Agocs, Grandmama, I miss her, and rejoice that she's reunited with Grandpa and those she loves. I'm thankful for the lessons, Taco Bell trips, and the investment she made in my life.
Hello, my name is Max Payne. I'm the youngest of the 3. Paige and Dan are my parents. I was so blessed to have Barbara in my life from a young age. She moved to Prescott when I was about 7, I believe it was. And she always said she wanted to, be a part of our lives and be close. And she always lived somewhere where there was a pool so that I would have a reason to come over. And so she said, and she lived 3 different places, I believe, that had pools. So we'd always bring our friends over, and she would treat us well, and a lot of memories, swimming in the summer in Arizona with her, and staying the night, and just trying to get all my energy out of the pool, so she could probably handle me. But, Barb was always encouraging, like Jared said, sending the posters, and they're always colorful, and you can tell she took a lot of time and a lot of care and all that, and usually had some scripture on there, and just speaking truth and positivity into our lives. That was always something that's memorable. And I just moved back to Montana from Arizona 2 weeks ago. I went to college here up in Havre. So, we've always spent time going back and forth, visiting Bozeman area, Livingston area. But going through the stuff, moving, you come across some of that stuff, and it is very special to come across, and you try to save as much as possible. We'd always spend Thanksgiving, Christmas at our home. Turkey, of course, for Thanksgiving, and chicken pavelkash during Christmas. And speaking of stories, I think my siblings left this one for me. Thanksgiving, she'd always make mashed potatoes, and she didn't live real close to the grocery store, but she would always make homemade mashed potatoes, but she must have ran out of milk, and she decided to use the vanilla coffee creamer. So, as soon as you got the bite to your mouth, you could smell the vanilla coffee creamer. It was brought up pretty quickly that, why are in these potatoes? So, she thought it'd be all right, and we ate them, but it was pretty entertaining for the whole day. And then, again, from 7 years old on, I played soccer, baseball, mostly wrestle. And from 7 all the way to 23 years old, she made it to all my wrestling events that were in town. Even in college, she was there cheering me on. And she'd always tease me a little bit. She asked me to come and let her know where I'm going to be and what mat, because she was waiting for about an hour or 2. And then I would wrestle and then get off the mat, and then she'd ask me, well, next time, will you please not beat the guy so fast so I can watch you wrestle a little bit longer? So I told her I'll try, but I gotta run that across with my dad. In middle school, she would often invite me over, and I'd have a sleepover with her. She'd always let me pick out a TV dinner, and we'd rent a movie, and I'd get to spend the night with her. And those are some of some of the memories. And in high school, you know, Jared was not in Montana, he was still in Prescott. Tanya was in Virginia. I'd be getting a phone call from her every once in a while, and I swear she would just drop the batteries out of her TV remote, just so I could come over and put them back in. And every time I'd show her how to do it, she'd be like, "Oh, well, it's okay, I know how. I just call you so you come over." And she would feed me something, you know. But the funny little things like that, and I'm a mechanic now, so I don't know if she just enjoyed letting me do that for her. But when she passed, it was, you know, COVID was ramped up. I think I was home alone with our first daughter. I never got to mourn any of this, and really until now. Things have been busy and crazy. But thank you, Barbara, for always being such an encouraging voice in my life, and encouraging me to follow the Lord, and for having a consistent presence in my upbringing. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? My name's Dan Payne. I'm kind of the first one to run the gauntlet to get into the Agocs clan. And it was interesting, you know, Barbara is a formidable woman. Anybody that knew her knew that. So I knew it was going to be a trip. I knew that I was going to have to work to ask for her daughter's hand. So Paige and I are dating, and I'm getting to know the family, and you know, I came from the other side. I was from Livingston, all right? So that was a mark against me right off. I mean, you don't come from the poor side of town and grab Paige Agocs and take off with her. You just really don't do that. I think she would have preferred that I be a lawyer or a doctor, and that might have made the mark. But here I'm this poor kid from Livingston trying to win her daughter's hand. So she was always kind to me. She never rejected me. She just was unsure if I was going to make it. So we forged a relationship over time. I remember meeting here at the university just sort of accidentally. It was right before Thanksgiving. And Paige had taken this assistantship to be studying for a master's degree out in Kansas. So she was kind of running. You know, I asked Paige to marry me 3 times, and she would always giggle. And that would just drive me crazy. I thought, what are you laughing about? You're really serious here. So this was like the 3rd time I was going to go out to Kansas and make another run at this proposition. And so I ran into Barbara here on campus, and I said, I'm going out. And I think Paige kind of warned her we were getting more serious. And she said right to my face, Paige should not marry you, and she should not quit school. Right to my face. And I'm just like, you know, that's Paige's decision. And she gave me the scowl and turned and walked away. So that's kind of how we started, and things got better. Things got way better. We were married, and it wasn't too long. Jared was born like 15 months after we were married, and that was a huge thing for Barbara. And number one, first grandson on both sides of the family. Number 2, a boy. I mean, they hadn't seen any boys. It was all girls. So here comes a boy, and Barbara just loved Jared. I mean, she talked about him like it was like a romance. I mean, it was just like, I love this boy. He's the most important thing that's ever happened to me, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just going, you know, that's cool. I'm happy about that. She didn't know she could love someone so completely as Jared. That was her statement. So as things happened, I packed up the family in 1985 and went to Arizona. And now I'm older and more mature, and I'm thinking, why did I do that? You know, and how hurtful and how emotional Herb and Barbara probably were, but they never put a stop or expressed any concern about that. And if you think about it, that's what they did in Pennsylvania. They packed up the family in Pennsylvania and came to Montana. So they probably maybe understood that I was gonna, you know, make my own way. But I originally wanted to go to Alaska. Paige said, hey, I'd rather go to a warm climate, and so you know what happened. But we went to Prescott, Arizona via Flagstaff. I had always wanted to be a Division I head coach, and my background was wrestling. Paige understood coaching, you know, Herb coached football and wrestling. So I grabbed the gal that really understood the coaching aspect. So I took the head coaching job at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff for a couple of years, and then in '87 the Big Sky just folded. Wrestling just shut down. Montana State, Idaho State, Weber State, all that folded up. And so we moved to Prescott, Arizona, and then in 1990, Herb passed away. Herb's passing was just way too soon. You know, what a great guy. All the people in this room that knew him know what I'm talking about. He just was a capital guy and a fun guy to be around. And so we lost, you know, our champion. And it wasn't long after that Barbara moved to Prescott to be close to family. And, you know, as each one of my kids expressed the times that they had with her and the joy that she brought, you know, we just all became one family with Barbara there. She was with us a total of about 26 years between Prescott and Butte, Montana. The 2008 thing kind of took us out, and we came back to Montana at Dillon initially, and then Butte, and then now Helena, Boulder country. But Barbara was with us much of that time. And, you know, you never want to forget Paige's care during that time. Paige has a big heart, and you may have saw that when she was up here. But I mean, she cared for her mother. Her mother lacked nothing because of Paige's care. And I think Barbara understood that, and that's why she wanted to be close. Toward the end of her time, she took me shopping, and Barbara loved to shop. And that was a huge thing. And nobody had ever taken me shopping. I mean, who takes a guy shopping? Who take your mother, go shopping with your mother-in-law? But she spent a couple $100 on me. J.C. Penney and Butte was folding up, and they had a big sale. So I bought a whole wardrobe with Barbara's consent there. And it was something I kind of remember as like a special time, like, okay, you're accepted, I'm taking you shopping. So that was a great time. But I was so glad that she birthed these three gals. And it's been expressed that these are three lovely ladies. I love Paige. I love my family. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for coming.
We're supposed to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm sure you can tell from the dark hair that I'm So to start with, I'm going to read something from my cousin. His name is Doug Levine, and he was not able to be here today. So he says, my name is Doug Levine. I'm a relative from the East, West Hartford, Connecticut, to be exact. Barbara was my aunt, the younger sister of my mother. I have had a hard time sitting down to write something in remembrance of Barbara. Perhaps because although Barbara has left this life, I feel as close to her as ever. She always lived in my heart from the time I was a small boy until now. Barbara and I were very, very close, very much on the same frequency. I had been asking myself why that was so. Of course, we shared the same family and shared the same blood, and we shared much of the same history. But I think we shared a deep heart connection because we struggled with some of the same difficulties. trying to find a sense of peace and equanimity in this crazy world. More importantly, Barbara was a searcher, a true spiritual searcher. Born into a Jewish family, she found enormous peace and love and meaning in her devotion to her chosen Lutheran faith. Her deep faith provided her with an anchor and a deep sense of purpose. I cherished and loved Barbara for so many reasons: her sharp intellect, her wit, her creative and sometimes unique perspective on things, something she shared, by the way, with my mother. But at the end of the day, I think I most admired the tenacity with which she fought to find meaning in her faith and in her life. I had great admiration and respect for her husband, Herb, and treasure my relationship with her 3 wonderful daughters. Thankfully, I get to see one of them, Perry, and her husband, Tom, often. Interestingly, Perry and my mother shared the same kind of intimate, loving relationship I was so blessed to have with Barb. I used to call Barb all the time, and we frequently lapsed into deep philosophical discussions, sharing what we were reading, always ending with us telling each other we loved each other. A few years ago, I decided to visit her in Butte. We had a wonderful visit. She was exhibiting some wear and tear, but she showed me around town. We went out for dinner, and I told her it was my treat. She said she would love lobster. Now, where I live, lobsters are expensive, but not that expensive. She insisted on asking what the price would be. Because it had been flown in, it would be $70 or $80. She settled for a steak. I am sorry I cannot be with you in person to pay tribute to my beloved Aunt Barbara. I have so many memories I would like to share with you, but she is right here with me, in my mind, my memory, and mostly in my heart, where she will live on until I too pass from this world. And now it's my turn. Oi. If I had known how difficult it would be to do a tribute, I wouldn't be up here. I approached this from every angle. Mom and I had a difficult relationship for decades. Yeah, worst way to start a tribute. Or I called Mom the Mamu for decades. I don't know why or when that started, but that's kind of pointless. It was hard to believe that 2 people could produce 3 daughters as different as Paige, Barry, and I. Naturally, our relationships with our mother were similarly distinctive, like serious. So I just thought, boy, that would be a great way to start this. It is true that Mom and I had a challenging relationship for years. More important is the truth that the relationship became wonderful. Love, great sister rotation was a huge factor in healing of our relationship. That is, I got divorced again, and Perry got married. Paige moved to Montana, and I moved to Arizona to be the Mamu. It was wonderful, and we became so close, and we had such fun. There was this one time when I had to have an outpatient procedure that required general anesthetic or anesthesia, and naturally I couldn't drive home. And so very early on that day, I drove with Mom to the hospital. Now, as you've heard from Paige, there was a reason why I was driving that morning. As Mom got older, she struggled with macular degeneration and became even more terrifying behind the wheel, if that's possible. In fact, before I moved to Arizona, Paige actually probably touched on this as well. Mom had several accidents within just a short period of time. So one day I called her and I told her I was worried about her continuing to drive, and she was baffled. She was like, "Why are you saying that?" And I said, "Well, Mom, your eyesight." She said, "I'm only half blind." And I was like, great. Oh, I feel so much better thinking about it. Anyway, as I pulled up to the hospital drop-off area, Mom said, "Oh, Phoebe, there's my cardiologist. I want you to meet him." And she rolled down the window, and here's this rather attractive man walking down. And she said, and I don't remember, he was Italian or something like that. He said, "Dr. Ravioli, I want you to meet my daughter Phoebe. She's here for a colonoscopy." It's like, Mom, thanks. It's like, "Hello, Dr. Ravioli, nice to meet you. And thank you for the wonderful first image of the movie." You said, "Don't worry about it. My mom has no filter as well." And so, let me see. Speaking of not having filters, that would be a really good description of her as she got older. So for example, there was this one time that Mom and I went to Kmart, yes, Kmart, in Prescott Valley after Christmas to take advantage of those sales. Mom must have been about 80 or so at the time, and she tired pretty quickly, and usually find a place to sit down and check out at Kmart was always really slow, and so we were there. We were in line, and Mom was like, "Oi, what's taking so long? Is Mom, are you okay? Do you want to go sit down?" And then she said, no, I don't want to go sit down. And then we'd stand there for a while, and she's like, "What are they doing up there?" I said, "Mom, are you tired? I can give you the keys, and you can go sit in the car." And she said, "Oh, no." And, it went on for a while. I said, "Mom, why aren't you sitting down?" She says, "I like to bitch." And you're so good at it. So I have so many more, oh, wait a second, and I wanted to tell you, this is the bracelet that she bought me that day. I have so many more delightful memories of Mom and our time in Prescott, going to church together, having to say yes to the dress marathons, holding hands while watching golf on Sunday afternoons, and going to Met Opera broadcasts at the Performance Hall. Mom wasn't able to sit through a full opera or concert at that time. It was too tiring. Sometimes we left the opera early and sat outside on the bench, and she would put her head on my lap. She wasn't able to go to the concerts I played in the orchestra there, but she was able to show up for the rehearsals, the pre-concert rehearsals. And that is a scene of my most precious memories of Mom, rehearsing in the orchestra and scanning the seating to find her. The joy of seeing her there. I would say to my standmate, "My Mommy's here." And then during our break, I would go and sit with her in the seats. And she would always bring me nibbles and some water. And I would usually say, "No, I don't need the nibbles," but you know how she was about food. There are so many scenes I would like to share with you about what Mom did for me and what she taught me. Of course, we don't have time for that, but I will share the one thing she got for me that I loved the most, and she was the most proud of providing. And that would be my favorite husband, who's sitting over here. She bought him for me off of Craigslist for $500. And I happened to get a viola in the bargain. And I'm also happy to report that the colonoscopy results were fine. I'm sure you're all happy.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lyon, the middle daughter who caused much consternation to Mom and Dad and our family in my teens and 20s. By God's grace, I turned out okay. I have lived on the East Coast for almost 40 years. It is such a gift from God for me to be here today to honor my mom, Barbara Agocs. For a woman in her era, born in 1929, she was an adept lady. She was an accomplished pianist, ice skater, and with Dad's training and encouragement was a great cook and homemaker. As we got into school, she transitioned into being a working woman. She held positions at MSU in the Ag Department, working for Max Emerson. She worked at the city administrating a HUD grant program, managed the Bozeman Symphony, and was executive director for United Way. These were all wonderful achievements which helped form me as a young girl. But much of the influence Mom had on my life were subtle things I learned by watching her and Dad live their day-to-day lives. I do feel the need to qualify that our family life was not perfect and as dysfunctional as any family, but the things I like most about myself and the disciplines I've mustered, I learned from the manner in which my mom and dad lived. I'm so grateful that I was taught to pursue excellence and persevere through difficulties. I was taught how to work hard. I was taught to be independent. I was never told that because I was a girl I couldn't do something. I was taught to laugh, and Mom was especially influential in teaching me to appreciate art, music, and beauty. Our house was often filled with the sound of classical music and Broadway tunes. I heard enough of the Broadway recording of the unsinkable Molly Brown, but by the age of 4, that in nursery school, it was reported that the song would often be heard singing during my days were belly up to the bar boys, let your money be seen, from the unsinkable Molly Brown, much to my mom's consternation. I picked up from Mom the importance of fun and adventure. She was a woman who played golf, tennis, and would jump on a pogo stick and learn to ski as an adult. I see Mom in me as I have tried to, I have the desire to try to ride on my grandson's hoverboard, try trapeze lessons with Max and Tanya, continue to want to go on carnival rides at Coney Island, and have taken a stab at indoor skydiving. Mom also taught me what it was like to honor and love a husband. Like most couples, Mom and Dad had some rough patches, mostly due to some of the shenanigans I pulled. But overall, they had a very sweet marriage, and they liked each other. They were a team. We knew they loved each other. What a gift to give to your children. When I finally got married for the first time at the ripe old age of 51, I remember Mom telling me that whenever I walked by my husband at home, that I should put my hand on his shoulder or touch his back, that I should be deliberate in demonstrating to my husband my love for him through loving gestures. What sweet advice to get from your mother. I learned from my mom how to be a loyal, attentive person to others. She would often send cards and newspaper clippings, as you heard, to people to let them know that she was thinking about them. I too love sending cards to people. My husband and friends often joke I have a card ministry. But most importantly, my mother gave me the gift of faith in Jesus Christ and what it means to be a faithful, godly woman. It is the anchor of my life. Mom was brought up in a culturally Jewish household, and she had a spiritual conversion in her 30s. I believe it was Arlene Lambert and Betty Kaufman who brought her to Christ in her 30s. From that time forward, every morning, Mom would sit in the living room in the green wingback chair, reading the Bible, doing devotions, and praying. And there's a picture that went on the photo slide that you can see her in that green chair. It was a sacred time in which she was not to be disturbed. She was active in church, taught Sunday school, and it was in her class that I gave my life to Christ at age 6. I found out years later that she and Beth Johnson got together regularly to pray for their children. And it's a good thing, because I'm not sure where I would be or where I would have ended up if they had not put that time in. She eventually would teach, she would eventually teach mothers Bible studies and often talk about us and about God and what God was doing in her life. The last time I saw Mom was the first week of March 2020, just before COVID hit. I had an especially sweet time with her. She hadn't been to church for a very long time, but a Lutheran pastor was offering communion at Big Sky Senior Living one day when I was there, and Mom and I were able to take communion together. Little did we know it would be her last. Mom also loved baths, but for the past several years, she just couldn't get in and out of the bathtub. It was too difficult for her. And I found out that I could reserve a walk-in bathtub at Senior Living, and so I asked her if she'd like me to give her a bath. At the end of the bath time, I asked Mom if I could wash her back. And I took a washcloth and I soaked it up. And while I was washing her back, I had the thought come through my mind of what a gift it was to be able to wash my mother's back in the same manner she had washed mine probably 100 times when I was young. I was also able to wash her hair. And when I was rinsing it and pouring water over her head, it felt like I was baptizing her. It was a time I will never forget. In some ways, I feel like the communion and the bath and the baptizing were acts that prepared me and perhaps prepared her for her death that would come just 3 short months later. Barbara Ruth Sweetler, Agocs. I was thankful for the woman of depth you were and the woman you made me. I honor you today with a grateful heart, and I thank God for your long, precious life.
We're going to do some open tributes. Would anybody like to say something about Mom or something on the board? Thanks, Mike.
Good morning or afternoon. It looks like it's afternoon. Everyone, I am Marty Lambert. I'm here with my wife, Catherine, and Paige, Perry, Phoebe. Thank you so much for having this tribute for this wonderful woman, Barb. That was good to read the tribute. 1956 is when the Agocs got here. The Lamberts got here in 1955. And it was Montana State College at the time. And my dad was head basketball coach of the Montana State College Bobcats. And Herbie was football coach and was head wrestling coach. So basically we've known the Agocs family forever. And yeah, he used to live just right over there on 5th, right? Is that where? Yeah, South 5th. So I'll start with a little tribute to Herb, because yeah, these three girls had such wonderful parents, both of them. And you already know that our fathers were jocks. And I see there's a couple of wrestlers sitting right there. That was good, because I never did. I never wrestled. I have a couple of boys that wrestled, but of course Herbie was head wrestling coach here, and Dad was head basketball coach here. So it was a little bit competitive. The patriarchs of these families, Dobby and Herb, and I spent a lot of my young years right across the street here at Romney Gym. Didn't look like it did. They gussied it up now and fixed it, and I'm sure it's all different. But that's where the basketball, that's where they played varsity basketball, and did, I think, for 1 or 2 years when my dad was here before they opened the field house. And I was up there one day after school. I used to love to go up there, and Dad used to love to have me there after basketball practice. And it was pretty crowded. Wrestling was there as well, so the mats are all rolled up and they're off to the side there in the Romney Gym. And I remember my dad's there, and he's dressed out in his gym clothes. He's got a whistle around his neck, and he's got the high top tennis shoes, the Chuck Taylor tennis shoes. And Herbie's walking across the gym floor. And Dobby says, "Hey, Agocs, let's get out there and have a little one-on-one, just you and me." And Herbie didn't even break stride. He just says, "Not until you get down on the mats, Dob." And if you would have known my dad, there's not very many circumstances where he didn't have a comeback for something, because he was a talker. He shut right up, didn't say a word. And I think if he would have been out on the mats, it would have been like one of those matches that Max talked about. I think Herbie probably would have pinned Dobby in about 20 seconds. Yeah, Herb was a great guy too, and I still hear him, Marty, so is how he used to say hello to me. Well, it's Marty. So, but Barb, you know, Barb and Arlene had, with the necklace, they had their wedding rings around it. That's the type of dedicated wives that they were. And I think the last time I saw Barb, I think she had the necklace with the wedding rings, and of course my mama had that forever. But I want to thank, again, you three girls very much. Mama, those of you who know Arlene, and some of you do, was very feisty, was very bright. I mean, Barb and Arlene are both very bright, exceptionally so women, and they got along so wonderfully. But I can't tell you how much of a help Barb was with Arlene in those final years of Arlene. I mean, they used to talk together all the time. And and Barb was wonderful, and because Mama got a little bit more feisty than she was normally toward the end there, and Barb was marvelous in talking with her and helping calm Mama, and I will forever be grateful for that. The last couple times I talked with Barb, it was over the phone. We got caught up. She was in Arizona. We got caught up and visited on some things, and it was marvelous. I think she had some sort of legal question to ask me, and I can't even recall now what it was. I hope it was, that, you know, like there's some good there. I think so, because we continued to talk anyway. She continued to call me. But that just drove home to me what a great lady she was. That was just wonderful to get caught up. She always talked about Paige, Perry, Phoebe, got and updated me on where all you were all across the country. And but it's wonderful to get all back together here in Bozeman to have a tribute to Barb. So again, girls, thank you for doing that, and praise Barb's name. She's a great lady.
Is there anyone else who'd like to say anything? Come on up, Dan.
Not used to talking in front of a microphone, and I have a teacher voice, so I'm just gonna
Oh, cool.
stay right. Okay. No, it makes me feel nervous. Anyway, my family came here in 1956, so a lot of us sitting here in this room grew up together, and it was a great place to grow up. And I can honestly say we all had great parents, looking at your faces, and we were blessed to grow up in this community, and we were blessed with our friends and their parents, and Barb and Herb were no exception. And I had the biggest crush on Herb Agocs. I have to admit that, because what a handsome guy, and what a great dynamic personality. And he was always vivacious and welcoming. I think Paige and I were in preschool up here at CDC, MSU CDC, and whenever Herb would come pick her up, I was like, it's just so cool. And going to her house, and Barbara was everything that they've all said. And Paige inspired, my parents are both gone as well, inspired me. I wear something of my mother's every day, because she said that. And my dad was an orthodontist here in town, but he had this great hobby of making lovely jewelry. So I wear something of my mother and my father's every day, and Paige inspired me for that. And God bless all of you, and God bless Bozeman and MSU. Sorry.
I'm Sharia Payne. I'm married to Jared, the first grandson. And I remember my first encounter with Barbara. I think we were engaged, Jared, and we went over to her little apartment with a pool to have dinner. And Jared was just almost out of his skin for what she was going to serve. He was so excited to have it, and so excited that I would try it. And my grandmother's Jewish and all this. And my first thoughts about her was she was just 1,000% class. She was a gorgeous woman, even as she aged. And we got married and we had children. She would meet me in the mall with our first son. And she was just thrilled to be around him. She often called him Jared, often forgetting his name was Bokri, but so full of class. And at her house, her white couch, and her dogs, who she treated like unruly children, just so much fun, so much entertainment. But she made chicken papagosh, this Jewish dish, and it was astounding. And so I asked her to teach me how to make it, how she made it. And so to this day, we often have chicken papagosh in our meal rotation. So just how you can bless somebody, just with all these stories that you continue. She's gone, but she's not gone. And what a blessing to have her imparted in each of us.
Anyone else? Come on. It's like a sabo to me. You grew up by then.
Hello, my name is Matt Sabo, and I was lucky enough to grow up on South Black in the cul-de-sac 2 doors away from the Agocs family. And that is where I learned to never underestimate the power of women. If you would have seen Phoebe in between probably 68 to 75, there would have been a boy tagging along with her, and that would have been me at the Agocs house. I was known as Mafu, and Herb and Barb were so kind to me, and I have just wonderful memories just being welcome in their home, no matter what. I remember Barb specifically telling me I didn't have to knock on the door, I could just come in, and that just amazed me. I remember, when Phoebe had a horse camp up in Augusta, is that what it was? I got to drive along, so I got to spend a bunch of time with Barb and Herb, and they told me some really funny stories about, when Barb met Herb's folks. Herb had taught Barb a bunch of Hungarian phrases, but unbeknownst to Barb, they were a bunch of dirty words. And, I remember just tagging along with Phoebe and how tight we were when we were little kids, and the love I received from the Agocs, especially from Barb. She was a boogie, so thank you.
Anyone else?
We really are overwhelmed by your kindness to come and spend Saturday with us. We would like to invite you to stay. We have a lot of food and beverages, and we want you to stay to fellowship and catch up because of COVID. We haven't seen each other. Just over the years, we haven't seen each other. And I would love you to meet all of our spouses, all our grandkids, all our kids, and tell them a story or introduce yourselves to them and how you're connected to my mom and to my dad. And we'd like, also there's packets, is it birdseed or, yeah, birdseed, so please take some of those. And let's party and fellowship, and God bless you. Thank you so much.